I want to move on now and talk a little bit about Ghostwire Tokyo. I've got my review for you right here. I've been spending a lot of time in Shibuya thanks to Ghostwire Tokyo, which is developed by Tango Gameworks, headed up by Shinji Mikami. So you drop some of those names there and you have some pretty high expectations for a very fun and spooky and creepy video game. And I think that that exists in Ghostwire Tokyo, but I also think that this is a game that maybe has suffered some in development through the pandemic and through some personnel changes, some high-profile personnel changes that have happened behind the scenes, because something has gone wrong with Ghostwire Tokyo. And I'm not just talking about the story, which is about Tokyo being infestated with all kinds of creepy ghosts and yokai and demons, and basically killing the population or hundreds of thousands of the different people that exist in this this beautiful urban environment. They've been wiped off the face of the earth by this killer fog, and you, as Akito, partnered up with this spectral ally named KK, have to go and save the souls that are still floating around inside of this beautiful modern setting, and also battle the creatures and the creeps that are cruising around on the city streets. And that all sounds like fantastic fodder for a game, and I gotta tell you, it really is, for about 5 hours. And then Ghostwire Tokyo kind of has said to you, look, there it is, there's our game, that's it, that's the game. Just keep doing that for another 10 hours or so. Just do the same thing over and over again. Now, you can do cool things, like you can run up to dogs and you can read their thoughts and you can pet them. And if you're nice to a dog will be nice to you and maybe give you some currency that you can use in all of these cool stores that are run by cats. I love that. Like there's this quirky charm and this quirky out-of-placeness in a lot of different ways. It's esoteric, and it feels like a trip. It's trippy, but it also feels like you're actually walking the city streets in Tokyo, which I really enjoyed. But you end up doing a lot of the same activities over and over again. You go into temples and you collect these kind of prayer beads that give you some powers up, and you are constantly exploring some interiors and seeing all kinds of spooky little elements inside there. And you're also picking up this spectral ether that will give you the powers that are, kind of Bioshockian in the way that they are crafted and put together. And there's all kinds of twisted distortion and corruption that's happening and going on around you, and you are constantly questioning what is reality as you're playing the game. And I enjoyed those elements. And honestly, like, if this was a shorter experience, if this was not a game that sort of presented that it was going to be a huge full-size AAA experience and had come in at a lower price, and we could set our expectations on what this game was going to be, I think it would have served the title a lot better. This is really a game that you see the whole thing in 5 or 6 hours. You do some side missions, like in this particular one, I'm trying to sneak up on a little demon and capture him, and then I can free a spirit, and then I get another part of the currency that unlocks some new special powers in there. And there's lots of collectathon type of side missions and stuff, or you have to go and find a kid for a parent. Stuff that you would normally think about in an open world experience like this. And it is cool that it's an open world, and there's some verticality in the game as well, so you can climb up on top of buildings, and you can go into subways, and you can fight with all kinds of interesting looking beasts and creatures, like this super tall lady with these scissors here. And a lot of it is based on Japanese folklore, and there's a real sense of belonging and a commitment to crafting some interesting iconography and an interesting tone and setting, all of which I applaud. I also really did like the visuals. I think the hands of Akito look incredible, and all of the different flourishes and magical attacks that the character has are pretty damn cool. They're not super effective, though. You have these elemental attacks. So you have water attacks, you have wind attacks, and you have fire attacks, and of course the fire attacks are the most helpful. You also get these different stun attacks and these other different abilities by collecting those, and there's also a spectral bow and arrow that you can pull out as well. And so there is a little bit of strategy, employing the tools that you have as you get into each of the battles, but the battles keep happening over and over again. And there is an interesting assortment of enemies. Some of them will look like faceless business people, and sometimes you'll be fighting, headless schoolgirls or giant monster beast creatures, and some of the bosses actually morph into some pretty spooky and scary looking creatures. But you're going to see a lot of repetition and a lot of the same types. And again, it's one of those types of games where you kind of see everything that the game has to offer relatively early, and then it's rinse and repeat. And the one thing about the beauty of this section of Tokyo that we get to travel around in is that a lot of the neighborhoods look very similar, and so there's a lot of repeated textures and details and signage. And of course, you have to consider the budget and all of this, but I feel like during the design phase of the game, there just wasn't enough built in to incentivize and to keep the player engaged all the way through. And so, I mentally was starting to check out at about, hour 7 or 8. And then there were some interesting peaks and stuff that would come in when I'd fight a boss or a cool looking cut sequence that would take me into the story again a little bit. And I really enjoyed the ending of the game. I thought that was it was really cool. Obviously, I'm not showing any of this stuff. I'm trying not to spoil too much. But that's the thing with this game, is that it doesn't really matter kind of what you show of the game, because it all kind of looks the same, which is cool. There's just, I think, just too much of it and not enough of it at the same time, which is really weird. So I had a good time playing Ghostwire Tokyo, and I was happy to finish the game, and I was a bit moved by the ending, and I don't know if I got the official ending or if there's other endings that you can pick up. And one of the things that happens when you beat the game is you can go back to your save and take the last section again if you want to, and you can also collect a bunch of stuff and start the game over if you want to. But I feel like I got the routine, and I saw what the game has to offer. I liked, destroying the trees, these corrupted trees. I liked going into the netherworld and battling the beasts apart from the Tokyo streets that we get to go on here. I liked flying, but I felt like there wasn't enough of it. And, there's other things that you find and you collect along the way that are interesting, but they're not really used in the gameplay. There were a couple of times where the game actually defaults to just showing an awesome cut sequence, and I would think to myself, why the hell am I not playing that awesome cut sequence? And, I get it. There's budget limitations, and they've got to tell a story, and they've got to kind of, hone in on the mechanics and figure out exactly what you can do. I mean, here's a perfect example that Hanya is the major demon creature, the major villain in the game, and he's really cool, and he's a great adversary to Akito and KK, who are incredibly powerful, but he's so underutilized in the game, like a lot of villains in video games. We see him, and then he's interspersed, and he's on video screens, and he's this threatening, oppressive force, but we don't get to interact with that character enough in the game. And they spend so much time building something so frightening and so cool. But yeah, I mean, I think the elements for a very cool game are in this game. I just think that it overstays its welcome with the mechanics and the ramp up in diversity. It should have been shorter, and we should have cut to the chase a little bit sooner, I think. I mean, I think that this would have been an amazing indie experience, obviously, but I don't know, somehow I think the idea just got stretched like taffy, and it just went on too long for the rewards that you get as a player. And it kind of interrupts this sort of this fantastic rhythm that we've been on over the last 6 weeks or so, where it's just been great game after great game after great game. This is not a great game. It's not a bad game. It's just an okay game. I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10.